What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Wednesday, March 19th, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 11:55 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Eastern Europe and from here in the US. So right now, the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, is talking on the phone with Trump. And yesterday, Trump had a phone call with Putin. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the coming days with these peace talks. My guess is there might be some kind of a ceasefire, at least initially, but we'll have to wait and see. But what's very interesting is that yesterday Putin agreed to a ceasefire on energy and in the Black Sea, and he violated his own ceasefire that he agreed to. He stated that he commanded his military to stop striking Ukraine's energy infrastructure and any kind of ships in the Black Sea. Well, they ended up striking some energy targets in eastern Ukraine, but also Ukraine launched a massive strike on Crimea last night and early this morning, and we had U.S. nuclear forces on very high alert this morning and late last night. There was encrypted data being transmitted on the primary U.S. nuclear war frequency for several hours, okay? And what's interesting is that yesterday, during Putin's phone call with Trump, there was a U.S. reconnaissance plane flying in the Black Sea close to Crimea, and these planes have side-looking radars. So when they fly, let's say, east to west, they're looking to the north and to the south. So they were looking at the coastline of Crimea and most likely picking out targets for the Ukrainian strikes this morning. So that is very, very interesting. And I'm not sure if Trump agreed to this or not. My guess is he probably would have had to agree to provide this intelligence to the Ukrainians to strike Crimea. But according to the Russian Defense Ministry, Ukrainian kamikaze drones conducted a series of strikes on Russian military assets in Crimea Wednesday morning, targeting air defense systems, radar stations, naval vessels, and a helicopter. These attacks, reportedly carried out with drones launched from unmanned surface vessels in the Black Sea, have hit various high-value targets, including S-300 VM launchers and Pantsir S-1 systems, which are also air defense systems, very short-range air defense systems. So this is interesting. So they're saying that Ukraine launched these drones from unmanned surface vessels. So they had drones in the water in the Black Sea that then launched the aerial drones that tried to attack the air defense systems, radar stations, naval vessels, and a helicopter in Crimea. And this rivet joint from the UK, Jake 17, a US recon plane, had to have provided the targeting information to the Ukrainians. So this is very interesting. And obviously Trump would have had to greenlight this, okay? And here's a sample of the encrypted data that was transmitting all night and all morning. And in addition to striking Crimea, Ukraine struck a major Russian oil terminal in the Caucasus Mountains region, and this was in retaliation for an earlier strike on Sloviansk by Russia with glide bombs. So the Ukrainian unmanned systems forces hit the Kavkazskaya oil transshipment point in the Krasnodar region. The complex includes a railway oil terminal and a 16-kilometer long connecting pipeline to the Kropotkinskaya oil pumping station, which is part of the Caspian Pipeline Consortium. Okay, so some pipeline that goes from the Caspian Sea region, okay, through southern Russia, was hit by the Ukrainians, and there is video footage out there if you want to see it. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video. But this is absolutely huge news, guys. Ukraine striking an oil terminal and Crimea all in one night. Very, very serious. And here we have an over-the-horizon radar that was blasting last night during this Crimean strike and the strike on the oil terminal. This is a long-range radar for nuclear war, and it was blasting in Europe. So someone in Europe had a nuclear war radar turned on when this was going down. And Russian forces attacked the power system of Ukraine's state railways in Dnipropetrovsk region on Wednesday morning, according to Ukraine's energy provider. So Russia attacked some kind of railway system in Dnipropetrovsk. And shortly after Trump's phone call with Putin, the Russian Air Force reportedly carried out a glide bomb attack on a power station near Sloviansk within the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine, resulting in parts of the city and several nearby communities to be thrown into a blackout, all while dozens of drones targeted other cities and targets across Ukraine. Okay, so it all started with Russia. They launched the glide bombs at Sloviansk, and then Russia launched an attack on some railway infrastructure in Dnipropetrovsk, and then later on, Ukraine retaliated by striking Crimea and this oil terminal. Okay, so Russia was actually the first one to violate this. Okay, and Ukraine never agreed to this. This was just Putin who told Trump that he commanded his military to stop striking energy targets and ships in the Black Sea. And the Russian military said that they shot down several dozen drones last night, Ukrainian drones. They said they shot down 35 over the territory of Kursk, 13 over Aryal region, 7 over the waters of the Sea of Azov, and 1 over the Tula region, and 1 over the Bryansk region. And Ukraine said that they shot down 72 out of about 150 Russian drones yesterday. Okay, so this is all happening right after Putin gets off the phone with Trump. So clearly Putin does not respect Trump. And we have some very concerning news coming out of France. So France is going to be handing out World War III survival manuals. They want to give these survival manuals to every household in France by this summer, the summer of 2025. Okay, every household in France will receive a 20-page survival guide with recommendations for emergencies, including a nuclear threat. The title of the document will be chosen personally by President Macron. This initiative is part of France's broader strategy to prepare the population for potential crisis situations. Wow. So this is huge news, guys. France will be giving out nuclear war survival manuals, World War III survival manuals by this summer to every single household in France. Okay, that is huge. And we've already seen the Scandinavian countries do that. We know that Poland is in the process of doing that. We know that Latvia already did it last year. Okay, so clearly Europe is preparing for war. We've seen some big moves made by Macron over the last few weeks. First, he said that he's going to extend the French nuclear umbrella to all European countries. He's even open to sharing France's nuclear weapons with allies. And we know that the Polish Prime Minister requested that France share some of their weapons with Poland. And also yesterday I reported on this, that France is now going to be reopening a nuclear weapons base right on the border of Germany that's going to have 2 more Mirage 2000 fighter jet squadrons capable of delivering nuclear weapons. Apparently this base was closed for several decades as far as a nuclear base is concerned. It's been open, but it wasn't used for nuclear weapons since the Cold War, okay? So this is very, very concerning, guys. And then a couple of days ago, Macron said that he wants to prepare for the mobilization of society in the event of a war, okay? So World War III survival manual, mobilization of French society, reopening of a nuclear base on the border of Germany, extending the nuclear umbrella to all of Europe, sharing nuclear weapons with other countries in Europe. Guys, the writing is on the wall. Okay, we're seeing the buildup to this big war that I think is going to happen between Europe and NATO very soon. And the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said Russia is preparing for future confrontations with European countries. She highlighted that Russia has significantly expanded its military industrial production capacities, and she's not lying. I'm not a big fan of hers by any means, okay? She's a leftist, I'm a conservative, but she's not lying, okay? Even the Polish president, who's a conservative and a Christian, okay, said that Russia has increased their defense spending by like 40%, okay, and the Polish president was very disturbed by some of the latest intelligence he received about Russia's military production. Okay, they're in a full wartime mode right now, all right? And speaking of Poland, Poland has announced that they're going to start placing anti-personnel mines along their entire border with Russia and Belarus. And this is part of Poland's Eastern Shield program. They're making these massive defense lines along their border with Russia and Belarus, the largest defense line since World War II. It's going to have multi-layers with anti-tank ditches, anti-tank obstacles, anti-personnel mines, anti-tank mines. They're going to rig bridges and overpasses with explosives so they can remotely detonate them to deny Russia's ability to use Polish roads to move equipment into Poland if there was an invasion. They're going to set up bunkers in different areas that are going to be used for infantry forces, and they're also going to have bunkers that store ammunition. Okay, and also we heard that the Polish military has already retreated 10 kilometers from the border of Russia and Belarus, which means that they're preparing for something to happen, so they're moving their forces out of artillery range. Okay, and we're hearing that Putin told Trump that he doesn't want to see him as an enemy, and the U.S. suspended a number of intelligence operations against the Russian Federation, according to Reuters. Very interesting. And Trump's cabinet is considering giving the position of NATO's Supreme Allied Commander Europe to a non-American, a step never taken in the nearly 75-year history of the position, NBC reports, citing 2 Pentagon officials. Wow, so that is huge news. And Steve Witkoff, the special envoy for the Ukraine peace talks and also special envoy for the Middle East for Trump, said that talks with Russia on the Ukraine peace deal will resume on March 23rd, which is Sunday. And Russia expects to hold talks with Elon Musk on plans for Mars flights and space cooperation, according to Putin's envoy. Wow. And Zelensky commented about the Trump-Putin phone call earlier today, and Zelensky's in the middle of a phone call with Trump right now. He said, "I talked with German Chancellor Scholz and French President Macron after the conversation between Trump and Putin. Putin's demands to end military aid, intelligence exchange, and Ukraine's mobilization are aimed at weakening Ukraine. The release of all Ukrainian prisoners of war would be a way for Russia to really demonstrate goodwill in the negotiations. Russia is preparing new offensives in the Zaporizhia, Sumy, and Kharkiv fronts in the coming months with the aim of exercising maximum pressure on Ukraine." Okay, so Zelensky confirming that Russia is preparing new offensives, okay, in Zaporizhia, Sumy, and Kharkiv. So Putin's not going to stop. He doesn't want the peace deal. He's stalling out on purpose because now Putin has the momentum. Why would he suddenly stop now? Why would he sign a peace deal? It makes no sense if his army is gaining territory every single day in various parts of Ukraine, in Pokrovsk, in different areas. Okay, he's not going to want to stop. It doesn't make sense. Plus, he hasn't really achieved all his goals 100%. Okay, he hasn't taken all of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions in Ukraine, the Donbass. He hasn't taken the Donbass fully. He still wants to do that. Okay, and he still doesn't like Zelensky. He doesn't like the regime, as he calls them. Okay, he still wants to get rid of Zelensky and install a different government there. And Zelensky was in Finland yesterday on an official visit, and the British Navy and Royal Air Force tracked a convoy of Russian warships and military transport ships as they sailed through the English Channel from Syria to Russia on Tuesday. Very interesting, and we reported on that yesterday. And the second batch of JFK files was released last night. Apparently another 31,400 pages of JFK files have been released, bringing the total now up to 80,000 pages. Wow. And according to some of these files, the assassination of JFK was carried out by the USSR. Apparently there was a CIA memo from September 24th, 1963, that showed that Lee Harvey Oswald was actively being monitored by the CIA at least 59 days before JFK was assassinated. Oswald made contact with the Soviet embassy in Mexico City, where he inquired about travel to the USSR twice and applied for visas. He was considered the most effective and dangerous intelligence officer in Mexico by the Russian consulate. Okay, so Oswald wanted to go to the USSR. The CIA tried to prevent the declassification of a document mentioning the USSR's role in preparing the assassination. And the document is based on a call to the U.S. Embassy in Canberra. The caller introduced himself as a Polish chauffeur from the USSR Embassy and stated that the Soviet government financed the assassination of Kennedy. The USSR set a reward for the murder for $100,000 US, and the Australian authorities considered the caller mentally unstable but were unable to establish his identity. Despite this, the CIA and Australia opposed the publication of the document in 1968. The declassified archives contain a transcript of an interrogation of a CIA officer regarding discrepancies in data on marriages between U.S. citizens and residents of the Soviet Union. Interesting. And the files mentioned conspiracy theories that suggested that Lee Harvey Oswald, upon returning from the USSR, intended to kill President Kennedy. Okay, so the CIA was aware of this. Lee Harvey Oswald went to the USSR. Very, very strange situation. And the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, announced on Tuesday a $6 billion deal with Australia to develop a new Arctic radar system, warning that Canada must take more responsibility for its defense as U.S. priorities shift. Carney made the announcement in Iqaluit, the capital of the Nunavut Territory in the Canadian Arctic, on the final leg of his first official trip as Prime Minister since taking over from Justin Trudeau last week. Carney, who has previously described the U.S. under President Trump as a country Canada can no longer trust, characterized the radar deal as part of a broader effort to assert Canadian sovereignty over the Arctic. The world is changing, Carney said in Iqaluit, where he made a domestic stop after visits to Paris and London. International institutions and norms that have kept Canada secure are now being called into question, and the U.S.'s priorities, our ally, once closely aligned with our own, are beginning to shift, he said. We cannot and should not look first to others to defend our nation. Australia is a leader in over-the-horizon radar, an advanced system that allows for continuous threat tracking over a vast area. The radar system's long-range surveillance and threat tracking capabilities will detect and deter threats across the North, Carney's office said in a statement announcing the deal. The new network will replace the North Warning System, which relies on radar stations from Alaska to northern Quebec that are incapable of responding to modern missile threats. Canada will invest an additional $420 million Canadian to boost Canada's year-round military presence in the Arctic. Securing Canada is an absolute strategic priority of this government, Carney said. We will need to do more. Funding for enhanced Arctic radar was announced under Trudeau, but the decision to partner with Australia was unveiled on Tuesday. So this is huge news, guys. Let me just explain to you in layman's terms how serious this is, because a lot of you guys may not be aware of it, okay? But right now, Canada is part of NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense. We have a treaty with Canada stating that we will protect Canada from nuclear attack, and we will treat a nuclear attack on Canada as a nuclear attack on the U.S., and in return, Canada agreed to allow us to station our radars in northern Canada throughout the Cold War. They used to have what was known as the DEW line, the Distant early warning line, and this was like in the middle of Canada. There was like a line of radars, okay, and then they got rid of that. And then in the modern era, they created the North Warning System, which is what we have today. And there's like dozens of radars all along northern Canada, along the Arctic Ocean, and then also in Alaska as well. Okay, so this radar system that Canada is now going to be purchasing from Australia will be replacing those radars that the US installed up there in northern Canada, okay? And the reason why Canada's doing that is they're concerned, basically, that Trump is going to shut them out from those radars, okay? Even though there used to be a NORAD bunker in Canada in CFB North Bay in Ontario, Canadian Forces Base North Bay, and I've done videos on that. It's a massive underground bunker like Cheyenne Mountain where they used to have NORAD, okay, and there still is a NORAD headquarters in Canada in Manitoba, I believe it is, in Winnipeg, okay, but this is very, very serious, guys, okay? And these radars are designed to detect and track ballistic missiles, ICBMs, and also air-launched cruise missiles, okay? And Taiwan launched a 5-day rapid response exercise to enhance military readiness in case China's drills escalate into an attack. Defense Minister Wellington Koo warned that the PLA could swiftly transition from exercises to an assault, stressing the need for constant vigilance. The drills come as China deployed 59 warplanes and warships near Taiwan, calling it punishment for President Lai Ching-te's pro-independence stance. And multiple social media platforms have been blocked in Turkey after the detention of the Istanbul mayor, who is thought to be a frontrunner for president, okay, opposition presidential candidate against Erdogan. And multiple Tesla vehicles were set on fire again, this time in Las Vegas. And last night during the Crimean drone attack, we had 2 Russian doomsday planes take off from Moscow. And then in addition to that, we had a massive amount of reconnaissance activity in Poland and the Baltics, and also in Finland. There were 3 Swedish recon planes airborne, 1 patrolling the border of Finland and Russia, 2 in the Baltic Sea, and then there was a private U.S. recon plane looping around Kaliningrad, and then there was a Polish recon plane patrolling the border of Belarus, okay? So NATO is very concerned. Here you can see the Swedish recon plane patrolling the entire border of Finland and Russia. And then here you can see the 2 Swedish recon planes in the Baltic Sea. I've never seen 2 of these in the Baltic Sea at the same time of this particular type, the S-100D Argus. Okay, they typically patrol the Gotland Island area and Kaliningrad, but I've never seen 2 of them. And then the Polish recon plane down here by Ukraine and Belarus. And then there was also an Estonian recon plane in the Gulf of Finland. And we also have a US B-52 up in the air this afternoon. It just turned its transponder off, but it took off from Shreveport and got aerially refueled over the Ozarks by these 2 KC-135s out of Indiana. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back later on tonight with more breaking news. Follow me on Telegram, Twitter, and Rumble. The links are in the description down below. Also, download my app for free from the Google Play Store so I can send you notifications when there's breaking news, and also when I post these updates and when I go live, I send out notifications there as well. And I post all my videos to Rumble, Telegram, and Twitter as well. So until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by MyPatriot Supply. Guys, MyPatriot Supply is doing a massive sale on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to go to preparewithnYprepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video. They're selling their 3-month emergency food supply for just $600, so that's $100 off the normal price. And this is 3 months of food at 2,000 calories per day, has a shelf life of up to 25 years, and all of this is packed into 6 rugged water-resistant buckets, and free shipping is included. And they're also offering a disaster replacement warranty, so if your food supply gets destroyed by a natural disaster, they'll replace it for you with no charge. And they also will provide you with free survival books and information, including a natural disaster field guide, a survival Bible digital copy. So use the link preparewithnYprepper.com to get $100 off the MyPatriot Supply 3-month emergency food supply, and the link is in the description below this video.